Preston Bell Charles III.
My name is Marcellus.
And my name is Dave.
And yes.
Dave.
And this is True Theater.
You know, it seems like only 14 years ago when we produced our very first evening of building community through the sharing of true personal stories in Cincinnati.
And that makes sense since tonight is the first event of our 15th season.
What?
And we couldn't be happier to be bringing it to you here in this beautiful venue that is downtown Cincinnati's historic Memorial Hall.
Yes, a special thanks to all the staff and volunteers here for always making us feel so very welcome. And for those of you watching at home, or who may be watching this in the future.
Oh, the future.
Yes. We want to thank the folks at Norse Media as well, who are presenting the live stream. They are sponsoring all of the equipment rental that it takes for you to be watching at home.
And you may have noticed our friend Dawn Caudle over here. Well, thanks to Cincinnati State and their ASL interpreter training program, our entire 15th season and hopefully beyond.
Ooh, beyond.
Yes. Will be ASL interpreted.
That is the greatest news. Yes, yes, yes. You know, we have a lot that we're going to be sharing with you tonight, but I just wanted to say how exciting it is that between Cincinnati State, Norse Media, Memorial Hall, all of you, and all of our storytellers, how great it is to see the Cincinnati storytelling community just grow and grow.
And speaking of our storytellers, why don't we get the first one out here?
That's a great idea. You know, we always say at True Theater that everyone has a story to share, and the only difference between strangers and friends is the sharing of that story.
And you're going to make 5 new friends, the first of whom returned to Cincinnati in 2006 from Los Angeles, where he primarily worked in TV, including CSI, Reba, Without a Trace, Murphy Brown, Drew Carey, Malcolm in the Middle, and Boy Meets World. And in such movies as Major League 1 and 2, The Fugitive, and Backdraft, among others, and has since appeared in Carol and Dark Matters, filmed right here in Cincinnati. How did we get this guy? He's also a playwright and stage actor and improv artist, having spent years as an actor, director, and teacher at Chicago's famed Second City. Friends, the third person to be joining True Theater's Five-Timers Club, Kevin Crawley.
In 1985, I lived in Chicago, 2 blocks from the lake in a large home in the Lincoln Park area. The house that I'd been in for several years was in the midst of a nasty divorce proceeding, so myself and 5 of our friends lived there relatively inexpensively in this large, rundown, rat-infested home. Unfortunately, that summer we got word that the divorce had been settled, and so we had to vacate. So one of my housemates and I, Tim, decided we would get a place together. Tim worked for a jeweler in New York, and he was their Midwest rep. So he traveled around the country with a briefcase full of diamonds handcuffed to his wrist. I waited tables in a pizza place, hoping to get hired at the Second City. We were very different, but we were close friends. So we were calling around for different apartments, and we got a hold of a guy who was in an apartment. He said he was the painter, and as far as he knew, that property we were calling about had already been rented. But he said we should ask the management company about this other apartment he had been working on earlier. The day before, he said George Foster broke a window with a home run while I was there. Bingo. Wrigley Field is the second oldest ballpark in Major League Baseball, and make no mistake, it is a park, not a baseball stadium. Built in 1914, it sits in the neighborhood of Wrigleyville, surrounded by apartment buildings. And between the years 1985 and 1987, I lived in one of those apartments, 1032 Waveland Avenue, with 4 very interesting and very different kind of roommates. At that time, the Cubs did not have lights, so all of their home games were played during the day. The actual first night game was played here in Cincinnati in 1935, and William Wrigley, Cub owner and chewing gum magnate, had every intention of following suit. He had purchased steel to erect standards for the lights, but following the attack on Pearl Harbor, he donated that steel to the war effort. And following the war, he said that he would put lights in when the Cubs started winning consistently, which is why in 1985 they still did not have lights. When I was a kid in Cincinnati and I would watch baseball when the Reds would go up to Chicago and see the games and see people sitting on their roof and watching baseball for free, I just thought, man, someday. Now I had that opportunity. Except the price was a little steep for what I could afford as a waiter. So we brought in a third roommate, a friend of Tim's who was a stock trader and had the worst foot odor you can possibly imagine. Was also a drunk and a mooch, but other than that, a nice guy. He was going to move into the dining room. So a few weeks after we moved in, Tim found out he had been promoted, so he went back to New York, so now it was just me and Smelly Cat. Fortunately, around this time, I was hired at Second City, so I was able to give up waiting tables and work 6 nights a week at the Second City for a pretty decent paycheck, doing what I used to refer to as making up shit and saying it for a living. But more importantly, my days were free. So, Wrigleyville in the mid-'80s was a neighborhood. There were still factories along Clark Street. Next to the ballpark was this tiny little donut shop, Yum Yum Donuts. So this was a pretty typical day for me at that time. Because I worked at night, I'd sleep till noon, usually wake up when the crowds started to appear, or Ronnie Woo would start his Cubs Woo chant. Now, Ronnie Woo was this infamous Cub fan skinny guy who ran around in a Cub jersey doing this around the neighborhood or in the stadium. Cubs woo, Cubs woo, Cubs woo. Hurts. Which is an inspiring rally cry at the game, but less so at 6 a.m. when he's right outside your window, which often happened. So after I would wake up, I'd wander over to Yum Yum Donuts, get a paper and a coffee, and sit on the roof and watch the Cubs. Sometimes friends would come over and join me. We'd drag a grill up there and make hot dogs, but oftentimes it would just be me and a guy with an inflatable Budweiser can that he had to keep tied down on the roof. And usually the Cubs would lose, and they would fly the yellow flag so the commuters taking the train home would know about it. And then I'd jump on my bike and ride down to Second City and do a show or two, improvise until 2 a.m., go out for a beer, rinse and repeat. It was heaven, I realize in retrospect. And the view was about a $20 seat in any other ballpark. And I got to see so many amazing players come up with the Cubs, Andre Dawson, Ryan Sandberg, my personal favorite, Greg Maddux. I watched them shoot the scene from Ferris Bueller, where Ferris sneaks off to a game at Wrigley. A lot of my friends were extras in that scene, and I heckled them from the roof. I even got to see Pete Rose, Ty. Now sometimes people think, actually, he broke Ty Cobb's record from my roof. September 8th, 1987, was a beautiful fall day. Rose was 44, player manager. He was 2 hits shy of Ty Cobb's record going into that Sunday. And Marge Schott had strongly encouraged him not to put himself in the game. Because the Cubs were supposed to start a left-hander, and Rose didn't hit lefties particularly well at that point in his career, he was not in the lineup. Except that Steve Trout, the Cubs lefty, showed up at the ballpark with gravel in his hand because he had wrecked his bike the night before. So the Cubs put in Reggie Patterson, a right-hander, and Rose inserted himself in the lineup. First pitch he sees from Patterson, he singles, 41-90. Marge Schott is at the Bengals game, freaking out, trying to get word to Rose to pull himself from the game. Reporters who were covering the Bengals are trying to make their way to the airport to get to Chicago to cover this historic event. 5th inning, singles over second base, tying the record, and for the probably only time in the history of Wrigley, Cub fans applauded the villainous Rose for 3.5 minutes. But as is typical of Chicago, the weather changed drastically. It dropped 30 degrees, it started raining, and there was a 2-hour rain delay. So I took that opportunity to sneak off and see a friend in a show, Rap Master Ronnie. Anybody remember that? Gary Trudeau, the Doonesbury author, reimagining Ronald Reagan as a rapper. I even got to meet Trudeau and get his autograph and still made it back under the roof in time for the resumption of the game. So now it's 6 o'clock, it's dark, but Rose has an opportunity to break the record, but he's facing Lee Smith, who was a fireballer for the Cubs, and he strikes out swinging. They call the game because of darkness. It ends in a 5-5 tie. Rose tells his son, I couldn't see the pitch, but it sounded like a strike, so I swung. So with my newfound financial independence, I'm able to afford this apartment with Old Smeller if we both paid the rent on time, which he was not doing. So I had to give him the proverbial boot with my less pungent shoe and find a new roommate. So I posted a notice at Second City, and one of the bouncer/host, Chuck, got back in touch with me and said he'd be interested. So we made arrangements that we were going to be roommates. And after I agreed to do that, several of the waitstaff started pulling me aside and say, so you're rooming with Chuck, are you? I say, yeah. You know, his nickname is Chainsaw. I didn't know that. Why is he Chainsaw? Nobody really knows, but good luck with that. So Chainsaw moves in and tells me he can afford the place because he's recently come in some inheritance. So he spent this inheritance on a Jeep without a muffler, a new laptop, which he was going to write a play about Anais Nin, famous writer of erotica, and from what I can tell, about a pound of cocaine. So this became the soundtrack of life with Chuck about 1 a.m. when we both came home from Second City. An hour later, needless to say, I didn't get much sleep, and Chuck never did finish his play. Eventually, Chainsaw, who was not a big baseball fan, ran out of money and cocaine and had to move out, and so I was left to find my last roommate at 1032 Waveland. When I graduated from college, I bummed around Europe for about 4 months and had amazing adventures, met a ton of people, and in many ways, those 4 months were more educational than the 4 years at university. And one of the people that I met was a young Japanese girl named Kumi Tsukamoto. And we stayed in touch after we both returned from Europe, and she came to visit Chicago a couple times. And late that summer of 1987, she reached out to see if her brother Yoshi could come visit. And I said, sure, of course, I got room now. So Yoshi comes over, and he is fascinated by Wrigley and The View, and in 1987, baseball wasn't as big in Japan as it is now. So I spent many, many afternoons on the roof with Yoshi and the inflatable Budweiser can guy, explaining the intricacies of baseball. Before he left to go back to Japan, we had a party for Yoshi on the roof, and he made this beautiful Japanese calligraphy for everybody who attended. You would tell him your word, your favorite word, and he would make these amazing characters, and mine was ambition. I always wanted to have a reunion party of everyone who attended that party and see how well their lives turned out and the impact of those words. I moved out after that summer. The Cubs were sold to the Tribune Company, who announced that they would be putting in lights the next summer. And so on 8/8/88, they hit the light switch, and in typical Cub tradition and fashion, the game was interrupted by a massive thunderstorm, and so it was never completed. And their first night game wasn't until several days later. It was a really magical time for me in my life, and now it's not even possible to live in those buildings. They've all become these party centers where you pay a ton of money for food and beverages, but nobody lives in those apartments. And I realized in creating this piece that really my primary roommate for those 3 years was Wrigley Field. And it was a great roommate. It never complained. It didn't take leftovers from my refrigerator. It wasn't loud except when Chuck or Ronnie Wu were around, and it always brought me joy. Thank you.
One more time for Kevin. Our second story tonight has lived here long enough that she now proudly calls Cincinnati home. She is the #1 fan, self-proclaimed, of the Ohio State Buckeyes. Yeah. She's also a proud alumnus of Howard University, where she received her Master's of Social Work, and John Marshall, where she got her law degree. But her pride and joy is her 30-year-old son, Ryan, who is coaching soccer tonight, and we all wish him luck. And after working in the area of social work for over 3 decades, she is on a journey to find her creative side. She enjoys sewing, writing poetry, reading, and trying to paint. Her motto is, "Be kind to everyone you meet, for everyone is fighting some kind of battle." Please welcome Mary Reed.
Thanks. As David said, I went to Howard University, which is a historically black college in Washington, D.C., where I met my roommate, Treya. But for me, that posed 2 problems. First of all, I hadn't really shared spaces with people. Even though I had 2 sisters, we each had our own room, and we didn't share clothes. We didn't even share secrets. And then number 2, I grew up in a predominantly white community. So I was the only black kid in my class until 8th grade. And then I was into John Denver and Harry Chapin. And I hadn't really experienced black culture like you would if you lived in a community that was predominantly African American, even though my parents are black. So much so that in my high school, I went to the bathroom one day and a black girl called me an Oreo. I didn't know that meant black on the white, black person on the outside, white on the inside, until much later. I applied to Wooster College here in Ohio, which is a predominantly white university, a PWI we call it. And my dad said he wasn't going to pay for me to go to school there. He wanted me to have another socializing with African Americans. And so he said, "I'm not going to pay for you to go there." I didn't know what to do, and my parents filled out my application to Howard University. Fortunately, I got accepted, and me and my parents and my 12-year-old sister headed off to Howard. Well, I was a little worried, though, I was going. I was kind of unnerved because I hadn't slept at another African American's house ever, except unless they were my family. And then I hadn't slept at anyone's house unless they were other than African American. And I certainly wasn't feeling comfortable about sharing a small dorm room with another African American, so much so that night, the first night I was at school, I asked my dad if my 12-year-old sister could spend the night with me. And he, in his fatherly wisdom, said no, right? I had met Treya earlier in the day, and she was, we found out that we had a lot of things in common. She was an oldest. Her birthday was 4 days away from mine. Her birthday's October 6th. Mine's October 10th. But she was, but she was much more worldly than I. She was only 16, but her parents had gone to Howard University, and so she was familiar with the culture in DC and everything like that. So I was 18, but I was very naive. So we met a couple of the girls that night, and we went to a party on campus, and I saw so many black people that I had not seen before, that I hadn't seen that many. And but I thought I was going to get discovered being this Oreo, right? I didn't know the dances I didn't know the songs, and I spent most of the night pretending to mouth the words to songs I didn't know. Thankfully, the music was really, really loud. Treya helped me learn about the music. She brought her record player with her. Yes, I am old enough to have records and record players in college, okay? She taught me about Prince and Earth, Wind, and Fire and go-go music and rap music. Ah, I practiced that Sugar Hill Gang song, you know, a hip hop, a hippie to the hippie, a hip hop. Yeah, that one forever, right? And Treya said one night I sat straight up, did the whole 16-minute rap, and then laid back down. Scared the crap out of her. Anyway, Treya was from DC, so she had her family come, and friends were over at our apartment all the time. And this is where I learned about Black mannerisms and social mores in the Black community, Black slang. Like, I didn't even know when I got to college that, like, if you said something snappy or smart, someone put your hand out back then, and you would slap it, and that was called giving dap. I didn't know. But I learned that. Treya was always accepting of me. She didn't mind that I didn't know about Black culture, and it wasn't always perfect, okay? I said I was naive, and so I brought my stuffed animals to school with me in college, okay? I had a Raggedy Ann, I had a Rocky the Raccoon, and a Raggedy Ann doll. My Raggedy Ann doll was made by my grandmother when I was about 10, and so she'd been with me for a really long time. I slept with her. Of course I brought her to school. But as 16-year-old girls do, Treya ribbed me about it all the time, right? So early in the year of school, I came home one day, and my Raggedy Ann doll was hanging by his neck. Yes. I was horrified. I was like really sad that somebody would do that to me. And Treya came back in the room, and it was a prank to her. So she was laughing, and she thought it was funny. And then she realized that I wasn't thinking it was so funny. And then she was super remorseful. And we moved past that moment, okay? As disastrous as that could have been, the thing that we both remember now and still laugh about, and it solidified our friendship, was that when we went to, my dad, you know, he wanted me to have this social life, so of course I go to a party and I meet a guy and I want to go back to his dorm, and, you know, he started to go to second base, right? And I was like, no, okay. He wanted to take me. He didn't want, I asked him to take me home. And he said, you can't stay, I'm not gonna take you home, but I'm not gonna make you stay here. Now, I forgot to say that it was late, it was about midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. There was snow on the ground. I was on the other side of town, and I didn't know how to get back home, much less even want to get back home. And I didn't know what to do, but I knew who to call. This was before Uber, credit cards, cell phones, and I didn't have any cash for a cab, so I called my roommate, Treya. Treya had a few choice words for the guy, and then she came and picked me up. She got a crew of my friends, and they traipsed through the snow from my dorm to his dorm and picked me up. It was a long walk home with them, right? At midnight. They were not very happy, but I was extremely grateful that I knew to call her because I knew she'd know what to do, but I didn't know if she would come get me, and she did. It helped me to feel the trust that I had about the hanging thing kind of like went away, right? I felt accepted, and I felt a part of them. I picked the roommate lottery. I got the roommate jackpot. I hit the roommate jackpot when I got Treya as a roommate, because back then they didn't have we didn't have a lottery matching system, and I couldn't have checked a box that would have said Oreo, match me with another Oreo. Couldn't do that. So I learned to live in small spaces with other people, and I started my journey to Blackness. But for me, I still would much rather be my own roommate, and there's someone out here that knows this. I still struggle with sharing spaces with other people, and I occasionally, no, probably often, lose my black card. So, but next Thursday, Treya and I are going to meet up, as we have done for the last 16 years, to be roommates for a weekend at Howard University's homecoming. HU! It's so fulfilling to meet with her. We laugh, we cry, we reminisce about our life, and we reminisce about our college days. So sometimes your roommate could be your worst foe or your dearest friend. And Treya has become my dearest friend, and I know that I can call her if something goes wrong, and she'll come and get me. She is my sister, and I'm eternally grateful that she's in my life. Thanks, Treya.
Now, you may have heard Mary drop mention of her birthday today. So, we're not going to ask you to sing happy birthday to her, but how about on the count of 3, we say happy birthday to her, and she can blow out the candle. 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday! Mary Reed, everyone. Happy birthday.
And what a great story for Mary. Thank you once again, Mary. Folks, we've got one more storyteller for you before an intermission, and then 2 more after that. We just got a couple of things we want to share with you so you know it going into the break.
One is that we've got t-shirts for sale.
Oh yeah, there's some great looking t-shirts out there.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
And you can also play roommate bingo.
Roommate bingo, what's that?
That's when you get a card from one of our board members, Zach or Holly. Make yourselves known.
They're out there.
Over there.
All right.
Then you find people in the audience who represent the scenario mentioned on the square. Find enough people and fill in 5 squares in a row, pop your email address on there, and hand the card back, and you can win free tickets to our next show.
You said free tickets, but this slide says t-shirt.
Oh, t-shirt and tickets.
T-shirt and tickets.
Executive decision.
All right, nicely done.
Thank you, I do what I can. Also, we'd like to take this moment to officially announce the start of our end-of-year fundraiser to celebrate reaching our 15th season.
Oh, right, yes, thank you. Yeah, oh, I'm glad you're excited about that. Folks, you know, we love putting on these shows together for you, and to do it right, we have to sink some money into it.
There's the money to rent this hall.
Yes, and to staff it, plus the money we sink into the merchandise, money we spend on Norse Media to be here tonight.
Wait, I thought you said they were free.
Norse Media sponsors the rental of the equipment, but we pay the hourly staffing of the students.
Oh.
Yes.
And how much do we charge people to view the live stream?
Nothing!
Nothing.
Nothing.
That's very generous.
Yes, it is.
Very generous.
Okay, I should have had the page ready to be turned. Good thing I wrote the script. I might know it by heart. What else we got going? Oh yeah, also there's the money for advertising. We really would love to be able to get the word out more and get more people in here to join you lovely people who made it here tonight.
Graphic design.
Yes, catering our rehearsal dinners.
Is there anything else?
I'm sure there's much, much more. But the point is that to do all this, we need a little buffer in the bank. So to celebrate the launch of our, again, 15th season, we're starting an end-of-the-year fundraising campaign to raise $4,000. We don't expect you to give it to us tonight, but if you did give it, well, anyway. This, we feel, will give us the breathing room we need that we're looking for just to keep the show headed down the road for seasons to come, and also to enhance it by reaching more people, getting them here, adding to our stock of props for the photo booth, which we'll probably have at the next show, and to enhance the experience here for those of you coming, those of you at home, and for our storytellers as well. And it all starts with you.
So after this, we're never going to ask for money again. I'm going to withdraw that question.
Okay. Good. Thank you. Some of our generous friends at True Theater and the True Theater family have already made donations since our last show, and those donations will count towards this end-of-the-year fundraiser. Thank you already. And also, our board is pitching in, and between us, we've prepared to match the next $750 in donations. So if you get those donations in now, your money will go even farther.
And how do they do that?
How to donate?
Well, that's what we're talking about.
Yes, that's right. It is what we're talking about. You can scan the QR code up here. It'll be up here at intermission, too. You could dip your credit card in the dip jar that Ramona will be walking around with during intermission. You also get that satisfying cha-ching when you do that. And there's a little one of these style and orange wristbands that say, I support True Theater on one side and building community one story at a time on the other for every dip in the jar that you make. Or you can text the code TRUE15, the number 44321 on your cell phones, and then follow the link that comes back from that. That's code TRUE15.
Because it's our 15th season?
Yes, to the number 44321.
Because
that's the number.
Oh, okay.
That's TRUE15 to code 44321. That's code TRUE15 to the number 44321. Any of these methods will work to make your donations to celebrate our 15th anniversary season of true personal storytelling here in Cincinnati, and to help us see a future where, who knows, we may experience 15 more seasons.
exciting.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you in advance for all your donations.
And now back to your regularly scheduled programming. Our third storyteller tonight lives in Burlington, Kentucky with Jenny, his charming and adorable partner of 18 years, and is the owner of Ridiculous Joy Productions, which teaches improv workshops to businesses, nonprofits, and schools. When not teaching or performing, he plays pickleball, poorly, and watches reruns of Charlie's Angels. And here's a fun fact. He likes all vegetables that have 2 syllables or less, and dislikes all vegetables with 3 syllables or more. I mean, I like a person who knows themselves, and you're gonna like him too. Tom Badger.
Love those pictures up there. Hi, I grew up in a small town on the other side of Columbus, charming little burg called Mount Vernon, Ohio. And great town. Our claim to fame is Paul Lind, the center square from Hollywood Squares. That's our claim to fame. Pretty happening city when your famous person is from 70 years ago. But yeah, he was a cool guy. And I had a really great childhood. I had a really, really good friend named John that we grew up together. We went to nursery school together. We played wiffle ball together, basketball, football together. We went to junior high and high school together. We went to rock concerts together. We saw Journey and Bryan Adams and Styx. Yeah, we were a happening pair. We went off to college and we flunked out together. So it made a lot of sense for these 2 floundering guys to live together. So we became roommates in the basement apartment of a house in Mansfield. We lived with the gays. We lived with Jay Gay and his wife, Bertha Gay. So didn't want you to turn your computers off after I said I lived with the gays. But we had this basement apartment. You had to walk around the back of the house to a patio with a sliding glass door. That was our only entrance and exit. There was one bedroom. John had the bedroom because he was there first. I had the couch. That's where I slept. John was a fry cook at Long John Silver's, and I was a bartender at Rex's Lounge in Belleville. Rex's Lounge was a place where we sold 80-cent beers. We had Bud, Miller, Blatz, and Stroh's. Maybe Old Milwaukee as an import. That was all we had. And charming little dive. And so he worked during the day. I worked at night. We passed each other a lot. But we had a great time watching ball games and hanging out and goofing off. And yeah, it was a really good, fun year, really. I had a great time with him. One of the things that we started doing to pass the time, we're 20-year-olds, not very intellectual, we started scaring each other. We thought that would be a fun way to pass the time. I'd be asleep on the couch. I'd get home at 3:30 in the morning, and he'd jump on me at 8 in the morning or something and scare me. And we both thought that was fun. And then I would do that to him. And what's interesting about John is he's a really kind kid, really nice, quiet, friendly. But when you scare him, he gets a temporary, about a 4-second moment of extreme violence when you scare him. So I would scare him, and then he would just throw haymakers at me, and then stop, and then laugh and go, that was really good. So it was just a temporary thing. Don't know where it came from, didn't try to analyze it. It was just part of the risk that I took in scaring him. But it didn't stop me, because this was our amusement. We have pretty empty lives, really. So I decided one night to raise the stakes. On a Sunday night, I worked 6 nights a week. So on a Sunday night, that was my only night off, we went to this bar called Diablo's, which is maybe Spanish for two losers hanging out. I don't know what it means, but we would go there, and we would drive separately on the slim chance that we would pick up a lady. Batted pretty low percentage there with that. So we would drive separate Diablos. Shockingly, one night, we had not met anybody to accompany us for the rest of the evening. I said, I'm going to leave early. And so I left, and then I hid behind his car. And then, even more shockingly, he came out alone and was coming to his car, and I jumped out. And he was like, ah! And man, he shoved me up against the car. And then he's like, oh, that was awesome. But he did inflict a little bit of violence as is his way. And we laughed about it. It was all good. And so I'd raised the stakes a little bit. So things were a little quiet for a couple more weeks, and I'm working at Rex's Lounge on a weeknight, and it was busy on the weekends, but during the week it was very slow. I might not have a customer after midnight, but Rex of Rex's Lounge was a tight old man, and he's like, no, you stay open till 2:30 till last call. And it's a desolate bar in a desolate town with a desolate parking lot with a giant, way too big, Rex overpaid for this, way too big of a dumpster for my one garbage can of beer bottles from the night. And so every night I would go out and drag this bottle, and I know I'm buff now, but back then I was a skinny guy and real scrawny, and it would take everything I had to lift this. It was bottles of beer, it was bottles of beer, so it was full of Buds and Millers, and I would pick that thing up, and it took everything I had to get it over about like right here of the dumpster to throw that overboard. And the dumpster was always empty because it was just way too big. And it would make this cacophony of just bang, 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 the bottles would go, right? And right when I did that one night, John jumps out of the dumpster. jumps out of the dumpster, and he's a short guy, and he didn't have hops, but he got like half his body over the edge of this dumpster way up here, and he was hanging over and couldn't quite, make it out, so I had to help him get out of the dumpster. And then what's really impressive is like, he stood in an empty dumpster for like half an hour. I mean, that's commitment. That is really committing to the craft, right? And, he's not necessarily staying up till 3 a.m. as a rule. And he's like, nope, this is going to be my red letter day. I'm going to drive down to Belleville. I'm going to stand in the dumpster, and I'm going to wait, and I'm going to scare the shit out of Tom. It's like, okay, I really admire how hard he worked at this and how lonely and pathetic it must have been in that dumpster for maybe a half an hour. I wouldn't have done it. I tipped my cap to him. So stakes were raised, right? And what do you do when stakes are raised? You just shove all your chips into the middle of the table, right? So I'm still very proud of this moment that I'm about to describe. I think it might have been one of my greatest achievements before or since this happened. We had a sliding glass door, right? You go to the basement, you go around, you slide in, you go in, whatever. So again, on a Sunday, I thought, okay, I'm going to write him a note and say, I'm going to be gone the rest of the day. I've got to go to my parents' house in Mount Vernon. I won't be back tonight, okay? So that's fine, right? And mere mortals would tape that to the door, right? No. I did something much better. I slid the door open, and I held the paper against the door and then shut the door into the door frame, and the paper stayed in the door. So no one could possibly think that I was inside, because try this at home. Tonight, go home if you have a sliding glass door, put the paper in the door and try to wet it from the inside. It's impossible. You can't do it. I did it. There's engineering students at Purdue that couldn't figure this out, right? I had done this. So he's coming around and seeing that there's a note in the door, wedged in the door. Meanwhile, what do? I have to wait, right? So I'm going to wait inside. And I didn't really know what my plan of attack was, but I had to wait. And I couldn't watch TV because inside the sliding glass door was our living room right there. So I couldn't watch TV. No cell phones. So I sat in his bedroom for several hours. It was light when I had this plan, and it was dark when he got there. So I was there sitting, doing nothing, and then the magic happened. So the door opens, it's quiet, I'm getting jacked here. And so what happens is I hear his voice. It's like, oh, who's he talking to? Oh, I hear a female's voice. Oh, it's his girlfriend, Debbie, who I hate. She's awful. She's a miserable, just a life-sucking person. I just did not like her. She didn't like me. The reasons they don't matter. But I've hit the jackpot, and I haven't even done anything yet. So they're coming in. I'm getting 2 for 1 on this deal. I'm ready to go. So I go into his closet because I don't know where they're going to go, and I didn't know what I was going to do. So I'm standing in the closet just shaking, just giddy. And then it gets better. So then I hear someone in the bathroom. Okay, John's taking a leak or something, whatever. No, I hear voices in the bathroom. Then I hear the shower go on. Yeah, that's what I said. I went, whoa. So I creep out of the shower, this is the greatest day of my life at this point. And I go into the bathroom, and so the shower is a walk-in shower. It's not a tub. So it's a walk-in with a door, not a curtain. So it's a door that opens up. It's like a smoky, translucent door. So, you could see bodies. You couldn't see what they were doing. I could hear what they were doing, but I couldn't see what they were doing. And I was tiptoeing in, and then my hand is like, Anthony Perkins from Psycho. Like, I'm just getting ready to go like this, and I'm getting so excited. And, I almost forgot. Also, to make this a better trick, was I parked my car at a church over a half a mile away, because I didn't want him to see my car, and that would kill the note in the door, which you guys will try tonight and not succeed in putting it in there. So I park my car, came back. That was all part of the gag, right? So, okay, so back to my shaky hand. I'm ready to pull it. And I knew something was going on in there. I don't know if it was actual coitus, but maybe it was heavy petting, which if you know of Paul Lind and his vocabulary, heavy petting was something he would have said back in the 50s. So I'm ready to open the door, and I opened the door, and I just went, ah! And it was magical because Debbie just lost it. She started shrieking, crying like I had just shot her whole family right in front of her. It was amazing. I loved it. And also, she had a pretty impressive body, too. I just had to take a look. But she just lost it. And John, who's ready to, punch and throw down, he can't because his hands are occupied and it's all soapy. And so he couldn't do his, I don't know if maybe he punched her, but probably not. Let's just say he didn't. But he was angry, and then I left. I didn't want to see the reaction. I just remember Debbie screaming, crying. It was so awesome. So I left, and I ran to my car a half mile away, and I left for a few hours. And then I came back later that evening. Debbie's car was not in the driveway, so it's safe. I can come back. And I went around to the basement and slid the door open. And it was dark in the bedroom, and I assumed maybe John was asleep. So I kind of tiptoed. I was very worried about his reaction. I didn't know how this was going to go. I didn't really thought that out, really. I was just excited about my master plan. So he goes, oh, hey. I go, oh, you're awake. I go, you okay? And he goes, that was amazing. I was like, yeah, damn right it was, right? And I really, my relationship with him grew deeper at that moment because he saw the value in what I just had done, right? So he wasn't mad. He never even got out of bed. He's like, yeah, that was pretty amazing. Yeah, it's all good. And then we kind of had a temporary truce or maybe a permanent truce. We just said, I don't think I can equal that. And let's just stop right here, right? If all disagreements around the world could come to this agreement, it would be great, right? So we just decided not to scare each other anymore. And what's really cool, though, is I've told that story countless times to friends. He's told it to friends and family. We're still friends to this day. And I talked to him this morning on the phone. He lives in Columbus. And whenever we get together, we talk about those stories of being roommates and scaring the shit out of each other. And to the lengths that we went to were just incredible, right? And it was just a really special time. And I wanted to share that story with you. And I have a challenge for you. So the next time any of you are in Columbus, if you happen to go to Columbus, if you happen to meet a guy named John, just go, ah! And if that person punches you in the face and then hugs you, you met my roommate from 40 years ago.
One more time for Tom. Folks, we got t-shirts, the dip jar, bingo, donations, stretch your legs. We'll be back in about 15 for 2 more stories.
Preston Bell Charles III.
You know, we really ought to tell you a little bit more about this guy. First of all, we're really lucky to have him, considering how much he manages to cram into his schedule. He teaches music lessons, he busks all around town, he drives for his father's funeral home, he organizes several open mic events all over the place, he parents his kids, and every time I talk to him, it seems like he's up to something else. He's also a dedicated advocate for those affected disproportionately by the war on drugs, and will occasionally get a grant from ArtsWave to create a consciousness-raising documentary. So yeah, gotta be the busiest guy I know, Preston Bell Charles III.
Now, I know some of you are out here tonight wondering if you have a story you could tell up here sometime. Well, I'm here to tell you the answer is yes, you do. And once you've figured that out, we encourage you to let us know. So you've got 3 more shows this season with the themes of comics, magic, and signs coming up. So even if you're not sure whether your story exactly fits with what we're looking for, submit it anyway.
Or even if you have a story that you know doesn't fit, but we think that, you know, belongs up here someday. We just love collecting stories, and who knows, maybe we'll stick a theme into season 16 and make it work out for you. Yeah.
And the way to submit is to head over to the Submit Your Story link on our website at truetheater.org, or by writing us at stories@truetheater.org. Just remember, we spell theater the fancy way, in R-E, because again, we're fancy, and that's truetheater.org.
And if you just want to keep up to date with everything going on with True Theater, be sure to get on our mailing list by visiting our website or following us on our most active socials, which is Facebook and Instagram. If you can remember how to spell theater, which again is the fancy way, you can find us easily on both, True Theater. See when we post pictures or videos from past shows, get reminded of upcoming shows, and when we're gathering stories for the next show.
Also, when we announce new seasons and new themes, and when there's a chance to find us at other places, more than just here, like the upcoming Cincinnati Storytelling Festival.
Yes, the Cincinnati Storytelling Festival. Yes, it's the 4th one here in Cincinnati, and we've been a part of every one since their inception. This year it's on November 14th, 15th, and 16th. It's over at the Westwood Town Hall, featuring headliners like Paul Strickland, a local favorite, and national favorite, but he lives here locally too, Lynn Ford and Andy Offit Irwin, sharing tall tales, folk tales, true stories, and a special hour of true personal stories from us. We'll be in the lineup for the 4th year in a row, bringing back 4 storytellers from last season, so you may be familiar with some of them, and others you may be like, oh yeah, you know, I wish I'd seen this in the past. Now you can. You go into the past and see 4 storytellers at the Cincinnati Storytelling Festival. We'll be doing it on the 16th. That's the Saturday at 4:30 p.m. You can get a ticket just to see that. You can get a ticket to see everything that's on Saturday. You can get a ticket for the whole weekend. It's all at cincystoryfest.com.
And if you're on our mailing list or following any of our social media accounts, you'll get reminders about that.
That's right.
Hey, Dave, I was wondering,
What's up, Marcellus?
turn of page.
Yeah.
If I wanted to always be the first to know what's going on, should I follow True Theater by getting on our newsletter, or following it on Instagram or on Facebook?
Well, you know, Marcellus, the fact is that sometimes the people on our mailing list get the news first, and sometimes it's the people on Facebook, and sometimes it's the people on Instagram.
So what you're saying is I should be doing myself a favor by following True Theater on all 3.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
You heard it here, folks. And remember, ending in R-E, because we fancy.
And speaking of R.E., are you ready to hear some more stories?
No.
I was trying something there.
Yeah, keep trying.
Okay, well, I will. Our next storyteller merely wants you to know that her story tonight would not exist without the love and dedication of many key players. A large family, some of whom I met at intermission, a lengthy list of numerous friends, Coop's front porch, Milford's first responders, complete with lights and siren, and a supportive community. Please give it up for Susan Villardo.
20 years ago, just about, when my brother Johnny was 42 years old, he got this big idea in his head. He decided he no longer wanted to live with our parents. He wanted to move out, get a place of his own. But because of some disabling challenges, he knew he was going to need a little help in order to make that happen. He had a very clear vision about someone that he wanted to be his roommate. It was me. I am Johnny's oldest sister. I can remember all those years ago, the great sales pitch he gave me at the time. Oh, Sue, come on, let's get a place together. It's gonna be a blast. You're just gonna love it. I just know it. And besides, you're not married anymore and you don't have any kids. Come on, let's do it. You need me to live with now. Like I needed reminders that I was single again. I'd been divorced for a few years. Oh, thanks, Johnny. Yeah, the no kid thing. Darn it, I just knew there was something I'd been forgetting to do. Let me tell you something about my brother Johnny. He gets an idea in his head. Just surrender yourself to the fact that it's gonna happen. Otherwise, there will be no peace in your life. He's gonna start calling you all day long, every 5 minutes, phone call after phone call. I just surrendered. I said, yes, Johnny, I will be your roommate. And you know what? As soon as I did, things just started falling into place for us. We found the perfect house to rent. 2 bedrooms upstairs, a common living space on the first floor, and there was a basement, which Johnny, for some reason, decides that's gonna be his bedroom. Except I said, Johnny, you are not going around telling people you sleep in the basement. You gotta come up with a better name for it. Okay, Sue, I'll tell people I sleep in the downstairs washer-dryer room. Okay, whatever. And you wouldn't believe it, our house is exactly across the street from the Milford Police Department. Johnny has had a hobby since he was a kid. He listens to the police scanner. He's living the dream now. We live across the street from police sirens and lights. Some things you should know about my brother. He does not know a stranger. He is the one of the most outgoing, gregarious, friendly individuals you could possibly meet. In fact, a long time ago, just as a joke, someone once said to him long before we were roommates, Johnny, it's unbelievable. In this town, you just seem to know everybody. You're absolutely so wonderfully friendly. It's like you are the unofficial mayor of Milford. And you won't believe it, that nickname has stuck. Johnny has worked for the past 26 years at a job I couldn't imagine having. He is a courtesy clerk at the Milford Kroger's. That guy, I don't care what the weather is, he is out there pushing those carts, bringing them back into the lobby. He's bagging the groceries. He's helping bring those groceries back out to people's cars. And he's not doing it because he has to. It's because he loves his job. He is active in his church. He's a volunteer with the St. Vincent de Paul. He serves in numerous philanthropic and social organizations. When my brother Johnny was born, he was born with a clubbed foot. Consequently, for the entire rest of his life, when we go shoe shopping, he has to wear 2 completely different size shoes on each foot. This makes him sometimes walk a little bit off balance. Does this stop him? Oh my gosh, no. You should see him golf. He has won gold and silver medals at the National Special Olympics. It's unbelievable. This is my roommate. When Johnny and I first started moving in together, there was a huge learning arch. It was for me. I mean, here I am. I got a full-time job. I am learning to juggle this brand new roommate, and something else is happening exactly at the same time in my life. Someone that I had dated 33 years earlier, when we had attended Claremont College together, has popped back into my life. His name is Rick, and he is now divorced too. And he has reached out and contacted me. And he says, I've really been thinking about you, and I was just wondering, would you happen to be available to get together and have a little chat over a cup of coffee? I'm juggling balls here. Hold, please. I'll get back to Rick in just a few minutes. When Johnny and I first started to try to settle in together, you see, my brother is very routine-oriented. He's got a very systematic way that he likes to live his life. He comes in from work, he might eat some lunch, he likes to call people up on the phone, and then he likes to go downstairs and take a nap, and I mean systematic every day. Where I sometimes was doing the laundry, and I was hearing, Sue, I'm trying to take a nap. And I would repeat this behavior a few enough times that one day Johnny comes home from Kroger's with a big calendar, puts it up on the wall, and puts his work schedule up. Sue, no doing laundry when I'm going to be trying to take a nap. Well, thank you, Johnny. That's very helpful. I can see that. The other thing I needed to really tune into and get used to was Johnny finishes one meal, lunch. He's trying to talk to me about what we're going to have for dinner. I am definitely not used to this. But I got really in tune to the fact that one of Johnny's most favorite meals is meatloaf. I got so daggone good at making my meatloaf. Okay, Rick, I'll take you off hold now. Let's bring you back into the story. I had remembered Rick with deep kindness. He was a great, compassionate individual. So after a little while of getting adjusted, I did call Rick. Seems like while he was on hold, he had done some homework. Figured out that where our workplaces were not very far from each other. He suggested, why don't we start getting together at lunchtime? Take a walk together. It was Johnny that helped us figure it all out. He said, Sue, why don't you ask him if he likes meatloaf? Invite him over for dinner. So I did. That night when Rick came over, I barely said a word. It was amazing. That Johnny, he is one conversationalist. He was getting more information out of Rick than I ever did on the walk and talks. When Rick was getting ready to leave, Johnny says, hey, Rick, why don't you take a piece of meatloaf so you can have it tomorrow? Oh, and just one more thing, Rick. Maybe I should get your phone number. I might want to call you sometime. And as Rick was getting a piece of paper and starting to write his name and his phone number down for Johnny, that's when it hit me. I looked at his face with his kindness and his compassion, and I just started to let go and melt. And I thought, oh, this man, this genuine man, I think I could fall in love. Oh, and besides, Johnny's got his number. And you can't say no to Johnny. Another arch of learning for me, something that really concerned me. Johnny's a non-driver. I really tuned in to the fact that I did not want him walking to and from work, even though Kroger's was close by, in inclement weather. And one of the things I started building into my routine was to be able to pick him up, especially when he would get off work. And I started to treasure that. Started to be the best part of my days. At Johnny, he'd get off work, and he would be so excited to tell me a story. He'd be talking before he even got to the car. Sue, we were so busy today. Sue, they really needed me there today. Sue, I was getting my kisses today. You were getting kisses? Yeah, right here in the parking lot. What? Sue, from people's dogs. They have them in their car. I lean my face in the window and they just start kissing me. I love those dogs, Sue. Okay, we're going to get off that subject because we are not having a dog at the house. And then one day, Johnny comes trotting out, and he's got this big bouquet of flowers, and he thrusts them at me, and he says, Sue, these are for you. Oh, Johnny, they're beautiful, but I hate that you spent your money buying me flowers. Sue, don't you be worried about that. They were free. They were going to throw them out. Well, then that's fine, Johnny. And you know what? About twice a month around our house, we have some pretty sad-looking flowers in vases. And I think they're beautiful. And another deep learning for me is that daggone HIPAA Privacy Act. You know, one time Johnny was needing to have surgery. And while that HIPAA is in place for a reason, when it came to me making phone calls on Johnny's behalf, people would just not talk to me. They had to talk to Johnny first. And I was trying to schedule some important stuff that day. And I picked the worst day because Johnny already had something in place that he wanted to do. He was waiting for somebody to pick him up. But I needed to make that call. And of course, we were on hold for way too long. And Johnny was getting a little bit irritated and antsy. Sue, you're going to make me miss my ride. And before I knew it, the call springs to life. And Johnny blurts out, Hi, I'm Johnny Velardo. That's Italian, by the way. And everybody calls me the unofficial mayor of Milford. And I need you to do something for me. My sister Sue is here, and she needs you. I need you to put her on my hippo. Please. My ride's here. I got to go. Goodbye. And I'm holding the phone. And it is cackling with loud, hysterical laughter. And once the woman calms down and can breathe, she says, that is the best. That is the funniest phone call I have ever gotten in my entire life. And I have been doing this job a long time. So, Sister Sue, honorary hippo, what can I do for you? Deep learning. You know, while I might have to work behind the scenes doing paperwork on behalf of my brother, he is a powerful own self advocate. He has voice, and he can get the job done speaking for himself. My brother Johnny turned 62 this year. And he has told me, Sue, I'm getting a little tired of running up and down those stairs in our house. I want to live somewhere that's only on one floor. I'm losing my roommate this month. Johnny is moving to a retirement community, and it's only about a mile from our house. And he's really excited. They serve 3 meals a day there at exactly the same time. And I'm told that the meatloaf might be just as good as mine. And he will have his own one-room apartment. And the best thing of all is he's practically a celebrity there. Most of the residents shop at Kroger's. And Johnny is just going to soar. He is going to do fine. But I got to tell you, I am really going to miss him. But I know I'm going to be okay too, because that lovely Rick, he has a 4-bedroom house in Anderson. And he has been waiting with so much kindness and patience. And lately, he's been asking me a really important question. And I think now it's time. And I can say to him, yes, yes, my love, I can come. And I can be with you. I will be your roommate. Thank you, Rick, and thank you, Johnny, and thank you.
One more time for Sue.
I mean, you stepped on my line. But
That was yours? Sorry.
before we bring out our final storyteller tonight, we wanted to offer a couple of prizes for people who got a bingo on their bingo cards this evening.
Let's see, pull out somebody at random. This is for, 2 tickets and a t-shirt. So we're going to get a group photo right after the show is over with the storytellers, and then somebody can meet you at the table there to give you this t-shirt. The first person is Michael DiMaggio. That person exists? Stick around, we'll get you that t-shirt after the show. That was fun, we should do this again. What do you think?
Sure, why not?
Michael DiMaggio, all right, so I got that, keep that one, that's important. This was a random draw. Chelsea. We got a Chelsea, all right, nice. Hey, that's great. I'd like to do that again. Here, hold on, Chelsea. All right, you want to pull one out?
Sure.
It's a lot of fun to do. I wish I could give you all the chance to do this. What do we got?
Waltke Paulding.
Waltke. All right, stick around. That's almost everybody. Thank you all for playing. We will stick around after the show. We'll get you those t-shirts, and we'll have your email addresses, so we'll make sure to get 2 tickets to the next show.
And a shirt.
And a shirt, and a shirt. All right, and now to finish off the evening, our final storyteller tonight has been a part of the Cincinnati theater scene for many years, working with Madcap Puppets, No Theater, Kincaid Regional Theater, among others, and you may also know him as the producer of the Cincinnati Fringe Festival during lockdown, no small undertaking there, but you'll be on his top 10 list of people if you're familiar with any of the shows he's written, including All's Fair, Could Have Said It Deader, Bad Poetry Night, and Songs of the Sea. He now works in IT, making computers work, filling in with art when he can. Shout out to his wife, Alex Rouse, Katz, Hawkins, and Patchy, and to Connor, for reasons you're about to become familiar with. Please welcome Zach Robinson.
Communication is key. It can also be really hard when you lack the tools to do so. It can be even harder with a stranger, especially when said stranger is your roommate. I haven't had a lot of roommates in my life, but I'd like to tell you about them tonight. My 2 bad roommates, my good roommate, and how those relationships gave me the skills I would need one day in my communication for my forever roommate, my wife, Alex. Thank you. Yeah, my wife, yeah. I agree. The problems in the stories that I'm about to tell you stem from big, dumb men being big, dumb men. And I'm talking about myself when I say that. I am, have been, and will inevitably continue to be a big, dumb man. My first time living on my own was in college. Like many of you, I was taken as a 19-year-old, fresh-faced little guy and crammed into a closet-sized, cinder block-clad, cave-like room with a complete stranger. This stranger would be my first roommate. And we started off polite enough, saying hi to each other, talking here and there, and we even made a mutual plan to rearrange our room together. We bunked our beds to create more space. We divided the room in half, rearranged our things, and made it so we both had something to call our own. But it quickly became apparent that we were two incompatible people. I was this theater-loving, nerdy little gamer guy, and he was a party-hard fraternity bro. We didn't talk much. In fact, I think that we would have been better if we did talk a little bit more. If we communicated, I know our relationship would have been a lot better. But our communication had become less and less, to the point where we were just doing these little staccato check-ins, you know, like, hi, going out, see ya. And then, eventually, between these little check-ins, an actual full thought was asked of me. Hey, do you think that we could rearrange our room again sometime? Yeah, sure, but let's talk about it later. Because I was on my way to a 24-hour charity gaming marathon for leukemia. Which I can tell by the blank face on a lot of you, that doesn't sound very exciting. But I kid you not, that was the highlight of my semester. Almost as equally memorable, however, was what happened directly after. I had been awake for 24 hours plus. My brain was leaking out of my ears. I had the caffeine shakes, and all I wanted to do was just lay down and go to bed. But I opened the door to my dorm to discover a renovation. My roommate had taken those 24 hours that he knew that I would be out of our dorm, and he had rearranged the room all by himself. And he did a great job with all of his stuff. He had taken more than our 10 by 10 sized room and left me with a corner. One corner. With all the stuff that I had just spent the month and a half getting used to on a pile on top of my bed. And I lost it. I don't know where I got this strength, but you know that strength that a mom gets when she sees her baby crawl under a car, and suddenly she can hoist it above her head with the power of her love? With the power of an angry grizzly coked out on Red Bull, I hoisted my roommate's entire bed frame over my head with the bed still made on top of it, and I single-handedly rebunked our beds. I took all the stuff in our space and I put it back exactly the way it was before. And then I laid down and I let the angry grizzly sleep for the next 12 hours. When I woke up the next day, he was right there. And he didn't say anything about how the room had suddenly miraculously gone back to the way it was. In fact, he didn't even say that much until he would move out later that month into the fraternity hall, when he would say his last, "See ya." And then I got to live in our 10 by 10 sized room the rest of the year by myself. And that was paradise. My next roommate didn't start off horrible. In fact, I thought I was making a great decision. I decided to move in with 3 friends. What could go wrong between 4 big dumb men? Honestly, I think the deck was stacked against us on this one, because we got to our 4-person dorm to discover that it had no dividing walls, no privacy whatsoever. And we did our best with it. On that first day, we moved all the furniture around to try to create some semblance of private spaces, moving our desks and our dressers into these cubicle-esque living areas. But our desks and our dressers were no replacement for walls! We could just hear all of the conversations happening in the space at all times. The only other door in this dorm was to the toilet. We didn't even have a door to the shower, just this thin privacy curtain that didn't do much. So we ended up seeing each other fully naked far too many times. We were all stacked up on top of each other constantly. And nobody really knew what to do about it. We were all just keeping up this guise of, this is going great, we're all best friends, nothing is wrong. But most mornings, I was hopping in the shower, listening to my music, and jumping out of there as quickly as I possibly could. Nobody, including myself, was letting their needs be known. Again, nobody was communicating. In fact, our lack of communication was building those walls that we so desperately wanted between us. Tensions were high. And they only got higher between me and one of my other roommates, one of the other 3 big dumb men. I got to sleep in a lot. I had a different schedule than everybody else. So I was, sleeping 2 to 3 hours more than everyone. But for the past 2 weeks, I was being woken up hours before my alarm had gone off. I was being woken up by my roommate, humming, loudly humming, singing, whistling, going, ah, ha, 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 ha. Essentially making as much noise as he possibly could, and I didn't say anything. I just kind of hoped that it would all go away. I was waking up every morning to that noise and putting my head between my pillows thinking, surely this bit is going to end soon. But it didn't. I was being woken up every morning for weeks on end to ha 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 every morning, the world's most annoying alarm clock that goes off when it decides and cannot be snoozed. And one day I just snapped. I yelled from my bed, "Hey, I'm trying to sleep over here, would you please stop singing?" And my roommate responded quickly and pointedly, saying, "Yeah, I'll stop singing when you stop playing your fucking music when you shower." And I was shocked. I couldn't believe that this big dumb man would go through all of this making nonsense sounds for weeks on ends just to prove a point. A point that could have been a problem that could have been solved between the two of us with a simple conversation weeks ago. This time, I had enough. This time, I moved out without little less said. This time, it was my turn to say, "See ya." Next, I moved in with 3 more big dumb men. But it actually worked out this time. I think the biggest contributing factor to our success was walls! Not really, but oh my God, just to have the ability to leave the main space and go into a smaller space that was my own and tune out all that extra noise was heaven for my little brain. But since it was only a 2-bedroom apartment, That means I still had to share with somebody else. And I was sleeping 6 feet away from another person every night. Connor. Connor was the best roommate that I had had up to this point. We just clicked immediately. I was so frustrated by this lack of communication in my life that I made sure that he and I started talking right off the bat. And much to my big, dumb man brain surprise, he would just listen and respond in complete sentences. And on that first day, we made a plan together to rearrange the room and create a space for each of us. And we shared that space really well. He'd let me know if he needed the room. He'd let me know his schedule and when he'd be gone and when he'd be back, so I knew when to expect him. I gave him my schedule. I asked him if it was okay if I played music when I showered. He said yes, as long as I'm already awake. If there was anything to discuss, we were unafraid to let each other know. And that's what made it all work out. And not too long after that, I met this girl. This girl I really liked. And we started texting a lot, and we started to hang out a lot. And eventually, she started coming over a lot. And this, I thought, would be the first real test of Connor and I's roommate relationship. But not only was Connor chill about adding a third to our sleeping arrangement, he actively encouraged it in a non-creepy way. And that communication did not stop. Alex and I, she would spend the night all the time. And we would try to tell each other little secrets and whisper to each other jokes and stories, which is obviously impossible when the other person in the room is 6 feet away in a different twin-size bed. But instead of getting angry or annoyed, Connor would just join in. We had this running bit where if Alex and I would fake fight, he would interrupt us and let me know that I could always just go over and cuddle with him for the night. If things didn't work out between me and Alex, then he and I could run away into the night and never look back. I never took him up on that offer. But it's something that makes me and Alex smile to this day. I would live in that apartment with those other big dumb men for the rest of my college experience. And for about a year or so after, so for about 4 years. And then after that, I moved in with Alex. And not too long after that, she and I would get married. And on our wedding day, Connor and the 3 other big dumb men from that apartment were right there. Alex and I make really great roommates. We're really good about making sure that each other's needs are met, and we have only grown more and more madly in love with each other day by day. And the thing that makes our relationship sing, the thing that makes it all work, the literal bedrock of our foundation, communication. I am so glad for all of those past experiences, even the bad ones, because they were all a roadmap, guiding me to the skills that I would need for my future wife, Alex, and for us to grow a glorious love. Communication is key, and it can literally change all relationships in your life if you're only brave enough to take that first step and say more than just, "See ya."
One more time for Zach.
And one more time for all our storytellers tonight. Zach and Tom, Kevin, Susan, and Mary.
Preston Bell Charles III.
Dawn Caudill.
Everyone on here.
And all of you. You know, we always say it takes two people to share a story, one to tell it and the other to open their hearts and listen, and tonight you did just that.
Thanks, too, to everyone who has already contributed to our fundraising campaign. You make storytelling in Cincinnati possible.
And thanks to all of you that will be donating to the campaign. We really appreciate it. We look forward to seeing you in November at the Cincinnati Storytelling Festival, or back here in January for True Comic. But until next we see you,
Be true.
good night, everybody.
Night.